We have Vanquish Soul for you today. We've also got Odon and Radiant Typhoon, and actually, these are the deck lists for the first major invitational for Genesys. So you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more Skynet. So this is actually the winning list for the Genesys Invitational out of this weekend's YCS. Now, you guys know they have all of these pod events, and then what ends up happening is you get to, if you're first or second in those pods, you get the chance to get paired into a much larger scale event that has a dark end prize card on the line. Now, Genesys format is regulated very, very strictly, and I assume that we're going to see some heavier point allocations coming down on this deck. Now, one thing that this deck's doing is it's not actually playing Dimension Shifter. They went ahead and traded in some of their shifter points for defensive cards like Book of Eclipse and actually having access to the Draw and Lockbird. That's actually kind of one important thing I like about Genesys format is the side deck actually is something that you have to worry about. You can't just think ignorantly when you're, looking at this format. You have to consider, other options. That's why things like DD Crow, for example, ends up being such a massive, asset to the deck, even though, it can be a subpar hand trap at times, but you're kind of forced to make these concessions. Also, in this format, something like Small World ends up being a massively powerful tool, allowing you basically just the ability to kind of set up and to find those extra pieces for this deck. That's kind of the scary thing about this deck, right? Like, you have to be as consistent as you can. It's also why we've been seeing things like Impulse and the Fire Attacker here being cards that players are supplementing towards because, not only does this act as a hand trap, it also gives you the chance to bring out the Fire Attacker, which if your opponent basically allows you to troll this, or to trigger this and get the free draw power, it's pretty good. We also do see Radion kind of helping out. This deck's got way more fire advantage in this format, so having the dark actually is kind of a nice tool. We've also got, the Anubis, man. So Odon is very, very, very useful in this format, is one of the things that I want to say here. Now, all things considered, when you're looking at the way that this format is kind of structured, back row is a very problematic thing. That's why you, or monster effects are pretty broken for this. That's why you see this deck playing triple Dark Roll and no more, and also sculpting in double Droplet here, because this deck needs to be able to play through these fields. Very famously so, I've seen a lot of decks just blowing through resources. Like, it's kind of crazy, actually. And now this deck's just like, well, we can put in evenlies. We can use, these power cards that we do have to try to crack through and actually basically try to establish something. And I do like that. It's actually a very, very good, consistent thing that this deck kind of has these tools to try to break these fields and do the thing. You also do get to see, Needle Sealing actually getting a showcase here. I think a few people might have forgotten, but this also can kind of clear up some of your extra clunky cards that you've got. And actually, I think that's probably one of the things you do want to consider. Also, it's not like you're not putting monsters on the field like it's your job. If you have to skew off a trap card or something, oh no! Iron Thunder is also becoming a very, very broken card in this format, but it should give you a little bit of an idea as to what Odon on the super competitive spectrum looks like. What tools that this deck has going for it that, might not necessarily be the most consistent, but it's enough that it seems good on paper. Next up is Radiant Typhoon. Actually, with Runic. Now, Runic in this format is much different than you kind of expect. We don't have the extra monster zone. You're not getting the chance to beam that monster safely into that zone, basically, to get that protection. No. Now you have to use this stuff as, the toolbox way it intended and actually try to do your thing. Also means you're not getting those defensive options, but that's fine because this card right here is going to be doing all of the cycling for you. And I actually think that this deck is kind of a scary force in this format, especially if you are slamming down fountains and controlling the opponent on, that level of degree. That's very, very crazy. It's also where the Crocea comes into play here, because this is going to get you a free Radiant Typhoon and a Mystical Space Typhoon pulled out. And this thing also can't be destroyed by battle card effects, so your opponent has no spell and traps. So you actually get that level of protection with this. That's actually kind of freaking stupid. This deck also gets access to Totem Bird because, free level 3 monsters is kind of stupid. Also, hilariously enough, you can turn your MSTs into negates, which is actually pretty good. We also do see the lava golems down here. Lunalights, an annoying piece of garbage that you're going to have to deal with this format. So you have to have cards to basically, answer those problems. And I think that this is by far the way that you address those problems. Just slamming down a lava golem cracks apart their field, and they're just like, oh, okay. Also, we are side decking the additional copy of destruction, which I think does work out for you in the long run. So not too bad. Then our last list here for the event is actually more Radiant Typhoon. Somehow, multiple Radiant Typhoon builds managed to kind of crack their way in. Now, this build's not relying on the Runic cards to kind of get the job done. No, this is kind of taking a little bit of a step in another direction here, which is fine. You have to kind of understand that your concessions are, we're going to go with more of a board breaker stance with this. It's where you see like the Book of Eclipses. Actually, the fact they're going Book of Eclipses, they're going Book of Moons, Chalices, and Droplets in this, that's a lot. But if, in hindsight, if you are getting all of these control options established, what's your opponent supposed to do? They don't really get to do anything, actually. That's kind of the crazy part about this deck. The minute you see through their crack, they're done. They're also playing a single copy of Widow Anchor, which we kind of live in a format right now where obviously, the Sky Striker cards are essentially worthless. Except Widow Anchor is a monster negate that also turns into if I've got 3 spells in the graveyard, I can jack your monster. Which, that kind of turns into a little bit of a game changer, because then that actually ensures that, we're going to have those control options, and now the opponent's going to have to deal with, the downside of that. That's pretty smart. I like that. We also do get to see Spellbound showing up down here as a side deck choice. And of course, you have all the board breaker cards in the world that you could want. I'm also kind of surprised they didn't fill out this extra deck a little bit more. They have the room, right? They have 4 missing cards. Obviously, they're at 96 points. There's not really a lot of other stuff you can cram into this thing and really, get those consistent results that I think you're establishing for. Now, I also tossed in this Dark World list. This got first place out of an event. I know a lot of people love Dark World for this format. A lot of people are trying to, break this. I also do see one of the funny ha-ha cards that this deck is playing is actual advanced draw, man. You're actually telling me out here that somebody actually went to town and said, hey, we're going to test out advanced draw in this format. We're going to see if we can get some draw power. And it actually worked out. I think I'm more surprised at advanced draw getting a chance to see some power. Now, obviously, because of the taxing that Dark World had to have, I do see that, we have Gates of the Dark Worlds in here. We also have Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed, being power cards. We also do get to see Deck Devies and, of course, Eradicators. Having the virus cards at your disposal to crack apart anything that the opponent might be doing feels so crazy. Also, the fact that they're actually playing original Rainbow in here is a hilarious feat, man. You gotta just appreciate what Genesys format brings to the deck building process. We also do get to see we are playing colorless in here. I can't imagine, colorless being a terrible card. It's going to be one of those cards that's just going to pop up somebody's going to look at it and they're going to go, what am I supposed to do with this garbage? You know, and I mean, the answer is, you know, it's pretty good. It is, in fact, very, very strong. So, a lot of cool deck list here. But what do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'll see your beautiful faces back here in day, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.